whenever it hits, it punches below its weight. We have to punch not above our weight. We have to punch not below our weight. We have to increase our weight and punch the post.
ये हमारा सिद्धांत है. हम घर में घुस के मारेंगे.
You know, victims of terrorism do not sit together with perpetrators of terrorism to discuss terrorism.
नमस्कार, जय हिंद, जय भारत एंड वेलकम टू डेफ टॉक्स. हमारे साथ हैं अभिजीत चावड़ा जी. सर जी, फर्स्टली थैंक यू सो मच फॉर टेकिंग आउट द टाइम. Always a pleasure to talk to you.
Thank you so much for having me. Always a pleasure to talk to you, sir.
My pleasure. Sarji, let's talk with Trump's tariffs. I mean, I'm sure you have discussed quite a bit on your channel as well. So have I. Let's match notes. Trump's tariffs, very interesting. Today morning, one article comes out in the Washington Post, written by an Indian, by the way.
Achha.
And which says that what's his name? Marco Rubio tried telling Trump that, listen, we need to stop with India. It's getting a little too much. I'm not able to handle it anymore. We need to stop. Trump said no. Till the time India doesn't stop buying oil from Russia, there are no tariff reductions. So there is efforts, there are lobbies, there is this, that. What do you think?
Yeah, so look, there's so much that's being speculated right now about the India-US relationship. Maybe it will all go away in a while. Maybe they just want a trade deal. Maybe it's just about this or that. Maybe it's just about Trump's ego. Maybe Trump just needs an ego massage. And if Modi would just do that much, then all the problems will go away, right? Just be nice to Trump. Say that, yes, Trump, you were involved in the India-Pakistan cessation of hostilities. You had a role to play in it, and we're going to nominate you for the Nobel Peace Prize. If that's all it takes, then why hasn't it happened? Maybe because Mr. Modi is being obstinate. That's the kind of narrative that is being constructed, not just in the West, but also in the Indian media. Some portions of the Indian media, we're hearing this. So what is the deal really? Is it just about is it just about an ego massage? Is it just about the oil? Is it just about something else? What is the deal? So it's not just about the ego massage. See, right now, yeah, Trump is saying that as long as India keeps buying Russian oil, they're going to have the sanctions, tariffs or whatever. They've increased it from 25% to 50% and all of that. What they really want is they want India to open up its market entirely to the Americans. Essentially, they want India to become a gigantic consumer market, an import-driven market. We open up the market entirely. We levy 0% tariffs on the US, and then they will be nice enough to maybe levy 19% or 15% on us, right? And what that does is that will open up our economy to their exporters. We will become a dumping ground. So right now, some people are complaining, okay, by that. There are Indian businesses there are Indian companies that are going out of business because of the tariffs that Trump has levied. There are Indians who are losing their jobs because Trump has levied tariffs. This is all Modi's failure. Now imagine if Modi caves in to Trump and he says, "Theek hai, sir. Yes, sir, you are right. We will open up our entire market to your exports. 0% tariffs will levy. Whatever is the price in the US, we'll get the same price in India." Imagine what happens then. All Indian companies will go out of business because we will simply become a consumption-driven economy. That consumption that is imported, all of that will be imported from the US. That's what they want us to do, and that will not be the end of the deal. That will just be the first phase. After that, they will say, "Now that you have been so nice to us, we would like you to be nicer to us, to sweeten the deal, sweeten the pot for us. Please give us." Please give us a military base somewhere, in some strategic location, maybe somewhere in the north. Maybe give us maybe some islands in the Andaman archipelago. We already have Diego Garcia. Now give us something there. Maybe give us something in Ladakh. Maybe give us something in Arunachal Pradesh, so that we can create more tensions between you and China. It's gonna the demands will pile up one after the other. So that's the deal. And it's not just about Trump's ego massage. And of course, the oil, like you mentioned, obviously has a role to play. Like you were saying before we started, we are now an oil exporting nation, and that's cutting into the margins of the West, and they're really upset about that. So all of these factors play a role. And maybe there's a Pakistan angle as well, right? Maybe we have hit some of their assets in Pakistan during the operations Indu, the 3-day war, because when you have F-16s in Pakistan, you have a bunch of American technicians who babysit those assets 24 by 7. And if an F-16 is hit on the ground, it means some of the babysitters may also have been hit. And maybe that's the Kirana Hills thing also. We hit that facility where they store nuclear warheads. Most likely the Pakistani nuclear warheads are US nuclear warheads on loan. That's what I am pretty strongly believing now. After everything we've seen, the Pakistanis don't have the know-how to make nuclear weapons on their own, right? They can hardly make a screwdriver. How will they make nuclear weapons? So all of these factors have combined together, and now essentially what we are see, the US India relationship has now entered a different phase. For the longest time, the Americans have been saying that, India and the US are strategic partners. We have a lot of shared values, blah 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 blah. The India US relationship has never been a strong relationship. Even after the 123 agreement between Dr. Manmohan Singh and Mr. George W. Bush, the second, the younger, we had the nuclear agreement between India and the US. And since then, it's being said that India and the US are on a strategically convergent path. India and the US share values. We are both democracies. It's a very strong partnership. It's going to be the defining partnership of the 21st century. That is all BS. It is all hot air. It has never been a strong partnership. It's always been a partnership of convenience when it comes to the US. They keep on saying nice things about India. We have shared values. But when they talk about Pakistan, they say that we have shared interests. And interests always trump values. The US has always used India. The only utility India has had for the US has been as a potential counterweight to China. And now the
Hmm.
US seems to believe that they have China figured out. China has certain issues that will not allow China to become more powerful than a certain limit. So now let's focus on containing India. So now the gloves are off, and their attitude and their approach towards India is now henceforth going to be that of containment. And we're seeing the signs and symptoms of that all around. So they are now in the process of containing India. They already set up the groundwork for that in the past 3-4 years. 2022, they did a regime change operation in West Pakistan. They ousted of Imran Khan and bringing Mr. Sharif, or whoever, yeah, Mr. Sharif to power, who is not to power, but just as the puppet, as the figurehead. He is a pro-US a minion of the US. Then the regime change operation in East Pakistan, which converted Bangladesh into East Pakistan, and Sheikh Hasina has gone. And then, of course, Project K, Cookie Land for Christ, that project to create an artificial, temporary Christian nation out of parts of Burma, Manipur, Mizoram, and Bangladesh. That also was initiated during the Biden regime, and I don't think that's ended ever. So the Americans have already set up all the groundwork for containing India. Maybe there are some aspects of that happening within India as well. Maybe subnational diplomacy is being taken to new heights. Maybe something else is happening. So what the Americans would like is to contain India, to bring India down, to ideally balkanize India. And the first thing for that, you need a regime change in India. Mr. Modi is very inconvenient. Maybe you should have somebody else in power. So all of this is in process right now. And it's going to be tough days ahead for India, because the US is the most powerful nation in the world, and we're going to have to be on our toes. We're going to have to be very careful. So the approach is that of containment now.
I mean, I don't know if you remember, about a year ago, you and I discussed this, and we came up with a. I guess we both were in Jaipur. That's the time we kind of came up with this, that 2032 ish they should be calling us a enemy and trying to start to contain us. But I guess that time we were a little off in our calculation by about 6 years. So
Yes, they
yeah,
have
I mean,
decided to go ahead and start the process right now itself.
yeah, they realized, yeah, ye to sare rukenge nahi, because it's going to become a problem. That's very interesting, But I look at you mentioned a couple of things. I look at it, I mean, not a different, but an additional approach, in the sense US is a dying power which doesn't have time, right? So that's probably also their hurry. They are a declining power. They need that boost. They need to kick the big guy, or one of the big guys in the room to show the world that I still have strength. Don't fight with me. And I think that's what they wanted with India. It just didn't happen. So how do you see
I
the
hmm.
reactions from within the US, where there's now pretty much pandemonium about India? You can see Foreign Affairs is writing about it. You have whole lot of stuff. It's going nuts and bolts. By the way, just FYI, Kurt Campbell and Jake Sullivan have written a combined article in Foreign Affairs
Mhm.
that this is a disaster. We need to stop. So the Council of Foreign Relations guys are coming and saying we need to stop. So how do you see that whole game being played out within the US?
Yeah, first of all, what you're saying about the US being a dying power, it's an interesting point of view. Uh, on the one hand, I would say that the US has never been as powerful as it is today. When you look at their nuclear weapons might and their power projection capabilities all across the world, the US has never been this powerful. But on the other hand, it is a declining power. If you look at their society, if you look at the situation on the ground, if you look at national cohesion, if you look at national morale, if you look at the debt to GDP ratio and so many other things, the US is declining, right? And the US is no longer the confident nation it used to be 20 years ago. 20 years ago, it was at the peak of its confidence. It was hubristic confidence. Today, they are worried. They are genuinely worried, and that's why you can see. That's why we see what Trump is doing. It makes sense because they believe that this world order, the so-called rules-based world order they have created, the financial economic order they've created with institutions like the World Bank and the IMF and whatever else they have, all of those bulwarks, that world order they believe has been utilized and leveraged by other powers to rise at the expense of the US. So now
Yeah.
let's completely crumble this world order, yeah, and create a whole bilateral based world order that if I like you, I'm going to tariff you only 15%. If you're naughty, 500% for you, that sort of thing. One to one basis, no multilateralism anymore, that sort of thing. So that's what they're doing. They're really worried. And this is clearly something that a less confident nation would do to destroy the world order they themselves created. So clearly, you are right. The US is a power that is worried that it's in decline. It is in many senses a declining power. It no longer has the high standards the US used to have in the 20th century, and so much more. Now, when it comes to the situation within the US, like you're saying, there are many commentators in the US who are saying that what Trump is doing with India is a mistake. We spent 20 years, 25 years building up a certain amount of rapport and, and this kind of relationship and a level of comfort with India, and you've destroyed that in an eye blink of a time. Uh, yeah, sure, they are saying all this, they're writing about it, but I am not that concerned about what people say and what words they write. I'm concerned about I'm only
What
concerned about what action is taken on the ground. So all that blah blah blah, talk, it's okay, it's nice to have, but it makes no difference at the end of the day. Whatever little strategic trust we had with the US is has evaporated now. Look, the US track record is not good at all when it comes to the relationship with India. We know what they
it's
did
not.
in 1971. We know the kind of support they've given to Pakistan. From Christmas Day to 1979 onwards, they've funded and financed Pakistan's terrorism against India. That has led to the loss of lives of so many and the expulsion of an entire Hindu community out of Kashmir and so much more. The US has funded and financed Pakistani terrorism against India. So that's the track record we're talking about. And obviously, the US support for the Pakistani genocide in 1971 and so much more, so many more instances. So that's the background. And then for the past 20 or so years, whatever the amount of time it is, we have been going step by step and trying to establish some kind of comfort factor with the US, some kind of some level of trust. But Trump's actions openly supporting Pakistan have completely evaporated them, all of that, whatever trust had been built up in the eye blink of a time. So now the trust is gone. Whatever relationship we're going to have with the US is going to be a transactional relationship. It's going to be an issue based relationship. We're going to look at every issue on its own merits, separate from everything else. We will not buy any weapons from them. We'll not buy their goddamned F-35s. We'll not buy any of those whatever else they want to sell us, and that's about it. So that's the thing. I don't care what the Americans write about this, that maybe it's a mistake, blah blah blah. Well, do something about it. Your
Yeah.
words make no difference. Your actions is all that matters. So that's where we are.
Yeah. I mean, that's very interesting. That's obviously the reality of the thing, which is very interesting. And it's also ironical This is the same Jake Sullivan who basically blamed India for what that pannu, chunu, bunu, whatever that nonsense was. So when it's
Yeah,
their
that's right.
turn, I find this hypocritical for another reason. And I wrote this on Twitter that when the apple is in your hand, that time you're freedom and democracy champions. But when the orange is in somebody else's hand, and pun intended with the orange, it it is, oh, no, we must not do this. This is not right, and this is
Yeah,
hypocritical.
true. I mean, they're accusing Modi of now hanging out with the dictators, which is Mr. Putin and Mr. Xi. Well, just a few weeks ago, Mr. Trump was hand in glove with Al Julani, a guy who had a $10 million reward from the FBI, CIA, whatever it was, for being a terrorist. He was hand in glove with a terrorist, and he recently hosted Asim Munir twice, not once, twice, a dictator. And then it's the pot kettle, calling the kettle black, right?
Black.
The Americans have this track record of always supporting terrorists who created Al Qaeda, who created Osama bin Laden. You say that you blame Pakistan for harboring Osama bin Laden, but who created Osama bin Laden, right?
You know,
Who created
if you
all of these
stand,
organizations? Who created
sorry to,
ISIS?
sorry to interrupt
Yeah.
you. If you stand on the third floor of Osama bin Laden's house, you can see the PMA gate.
Yeah, right.
So
Kakul, right? Kakul.
yeah, it's right.
Yeah.
I've mapped it out. I have I have it in my this thing. I mapped it out. I've shown it to my audience as well. You can
Yeah,
stand
PMA Kakul.
right, man.
So obviously he was under their protection. He was not a fugitive. It was known that he was there, and they took him out when they decided that the time is right, when Obama needed to make a point. So whatever Sullivan is doing and all, it's all domestic politics. It's about the opposition blaming the current whoever is in power that you're not doing things right. But when they're in power, they'll play the same game. See,
Mhm.
Trump. See, I had said last year in the run-up to the presidential elections in the U.S., I had said that I believe that it's highly unlikely that Trump will win the presidency. That's what I had said, and I said that if he does win the presidency in this unlikely situation, it will mean that he has kissed the ring, which means the ring of the deep state. And what it means is that the deep state, whoever genuinely runs the US behind the scenes, the real power behind the throne, they are worried about India's potential rise. India is the only major economy that is not projected to have a recession for the next 20 or so years. India, despite the tariffs and all, is still projected to grow at 6.3, 6.5% next year or the next year. And if this continues, then even with a mediocre 6% growth, we're going to be in very dangerous territory in 20 years. By 2035, 2040, 2045 horizon, we will be a very major power. And that's what they're worried about. They're worried about a future Thucydides trap. For some reason, the Americans seem to believe that they can handle China. But let's not have a new competitor rising on the horizon. And they have been worried about India for the longest time. I mean, even in the 20th century, if you look at what they used to write about India in confidentiality, they were worried
Yeah.
about India. They had seen the kind of rise Japan had when Japan got things right, and they knew exactly what India's potential is, what it's capable of. And very fortunately for them, we had the kind of leaders we had in the 20th century, but now they are worried. Now they are
Now,
worried there's this rise of nationalism in India, and Indians are finally realizing what they really are and what their potential is. That's what worries them.
yeah, that's true. I want to switch to a little bit of the globe. So you have the Europeans. Actually, let me start with Japan. That was very interesting. They say timing is everything in geopolitics. And the day Modi ji is landing, just a day prior to that, Japan says, get lost, I'm not coming there. And it was again to do with agriculture more than anything else, right? It was Japanese agriculture. Do you know what the real game was? The real game
Do tell.
was the Japanese asked for the draft of the current agreement. They said, okay, let me just, compare notes. And thankfully they did. The Americans slyly put a line there that Japan will buy all its rice from America.
Mhm.
This is happening at the level of two countries. And the Japanese were pissed off. Like, sorry, this is not going to work. And they just dropped it. Now, this happens at the same time with Modi ji. They stand with Modi ji. And today we also have the German guy coming in making a few statements. I don't know how much legs does he have to stand on. And I wrote on Twitter also, are they showing a semblance of thinking about growing a spine somewhere? So what do you think is happening there?
Look, I briefly looked at the kind of deal Trump claims to have reached with Japan. He says that Japan will buy about $500 billion worth of goods from the US, including weapons and God knows what. And in exchange, in return for that, they're going to be tariffed at what, 19% or 20% or whatever the number is, right? And Japan will impose tariffs of what, 12% or 15%. So the US gets to impose higher tariffs. Japan has to have lower tariffs on US imports, and Japan, in return for this, has to buy about $500 billion worth of US goods. And on top of that, they want Japan to import American rice, which the Japanese don't need because they produce their own rice, right? So that's the kind of deal it is. See, Japan has been under permanent US military occupation since 1945. The US has more than 130 permanent military bases on Japanese soil. Japan is not a free nation. It's a nation that's been under occupation since the end of the Second World War. The Japanese constitution was written by the Americans. Not a word was changed since 1945 until now. Shinzo Abe thought of changing a few words, and we know what happened to him. The Bank of Japan is, whatever decisions it takes, it has to take the approval of the American generals who run the country. The Japanese government, when it comes to their foreign policy or military policy, have to take the sign off from the American generals who run the country. Japan is under permanent US military occupation, and still they had to push back against this US demand that the Japanese import American rice. So that's the situation with Japan. South Korea, exactly the same situation, under permanent US military occupation since the end of since the so-called end of the Korean War. Germany is under permanent US military occupation since 1945. People may not realize it. Germany is not a free country. Their constitution was also supervised by the Americans, and they can't change anything without American approval. Same goes for Italy and so many more. So all these countries are under complete US control, and that's why the Americans can get anything done from them. And they want India to be in that situation, and India is refusing to do that. I mean, it's I was extremely pleasantly surprised, and I'm really proud that Mr. Modi has stood up to the US. He's refused to cave in, and that's where we are. So that's the deal with Japan. And the Japanese made the statement, like you said, just a day before Mr. Modi arrived there. And the Japanese are a proud people. We've had a very long historical connection with Japan. We have so much shared culture, shared values. We have so much more in common between India and Japan than between Japan and the US. The Japanese know that. They also recognize that right now we are under US military occupation. We can't do much, but whatever they can do, whatever cooperation they can achieve, they will, I'm sure, be happy to do with India. So Japan, I would say, is, despite it not being a free country, it's still an important relationship for us, and it's something that helps us maintain a certain balance in the East Asia region.
Source of technology, at least. There's some things that you can't get from America. Japan would be eager to give you if you can sort out his problem, which is basically your manpower. How do you see the India-Russia relationship? The biggest talking point was that 50-minute car ride. That was interesting. I mean, both these monkeys know how to, just the media, this thing. But, when you look at Putin and Xi Jinping, and personally, honestly, I've seen better camaraderie between both of them. I've seen better times between Putin and Xi Jinping. There's the love-filled statements that used to come out in terms of the two countries, no limits, and this and that. That all language is gone. It's gone. Neither did Xi mention it this time, nor did Putin. How do you see the entry of India into this game? Of course, that was a pretty dramatic entry, and it was probably a planned one. How do you see that as this thing? Was China really happy having Modi ji there?
Right. So China couldn't do a thing about it because India is a member of the SCO, and as per convention, you've got to invite India there. And China also, I would say, it wants to take advantage of the American approach towards the world. I mean, if there's an opportunity to have India closer to you, then why not leverage the opportunity? So maybe that's the thinking in China. When it comes to the Russia-China relationship, you are right. The relationship was warmer in the past. It was friendlier in the past. Right now, you can see some strain despite all the appearances that are made. Look, Russia is in a tough position. Russia has, I would commend Russia for standing up to the combined might of the US and its vassals, which is NATO and EU. And Russia, despite all the sanctions that have been levied upon them, imposed upon them, every single sanction you can imagine has been dumped on them, and still their economy has been kind of growing. So Russia is actually doing well. They have been extremely resilient, and they always perform best when they are under stress. But the Ukraine war, the consequence it has had on Russia is that it has brought Russia very close to China, maybe placed Russia in a kind of a subsidiary position, subordinate position to some extent towards China. India has helped. India has acted as a pressure release valve, primarily by buying so much Russian oil that Russia is not entirely dependent on China. But and yet, the situation is that without China, Russia is in big trouble. So. That's the deal, and Mr. Xi Jinping will obviously leverage that advantage that he has. I mean, if you see those images that his state media put out of Mr. Xi Jinping walking like that, and everybody else is following him, including Mr. Putin, who's looking down. They'll take an image only when Putin looks down, right? Obviously, so. Yeah, that's the kind of framing they're doing. That we are now creating a separate pole as opposed to the Western led world order. Now we're going to have a Xi Jinping led world order, and Mr. Putin and Mr. Kim Jong Un and whoever else are there are essentially Mr. Xi Jinping's vassals. That's the kind of imagery, that's the kind of symbolism, and that's the kind of suggestion narrative the Chinese are creating. Mr. Putin will not be comfortable with that at all. Mr. Putin is nobody's vassal, but China is trying to portray him as a vassal. So I assure you, there is stress. There is a certain amount of stress and a certain amount of strain between the two nations. China has of late being increasingly treating Russia like a junior partner, and the cartographic aggression has again started when it comes to China. I mean, the Chinese and the Russians had this long-standing border dispute, the Ussuri River issue, which was eventually resolved on paper through a diplomatic agreement in the early 2000s, before 2000, around 2005 or slightly before that. But now the Chinese have once again started cartographic aggression. They're publishing maps in which they show Russian territory as Chinese with Chinese names and so on. So the Chinese are subtly pressuring Russia, and the recent parade that happened in Beijing in front of Mr. Putin, where the Chinese displayed all their weapons, I'm sure Mr. Putin would not have appreciated that. So that is the situation between Russia and China. They are not allies. They are natural rivals. They are long-term adversaries. Right now, it's a relationship of convenience because both need it. What's the situation when India enters this? Do we have a potential RIC coalition happening? I think it's highly unlikely, because when it comes to India and China, the core issues, until you settle them, there's going to be no progress or no significant progress anywhere. The core issue is that China occupies Indian territory and China claims more Indian territory. Now, how do you resolve it? I mean, the Chinese have been obstinate. They have been steadfast in refusing to do anything about demarcating the India-Tibet border. We've had 387 rounds of talks, or God knows how many rounds of talks between India and China about the border issue. There's never any progress. It's just procedure. The Chinese are being procedural, but they don't want any actual progress when it comes to settling the issues. So China feels that it has the upper hand in the India-China relationship, which it does. It's a more powerful nation. It's a bigger economy and so on. So they want to maintain that leverage they have over India. And as long as that attitude continues, they're still strengthening their military position north of Pangong Lake, on various and north of Ladakh and all. So as long as this continues, you're not going to have a great relationship. Maybe we'll talk. Maybe there's a kind of ice that's been broken. Maybe there's a kind of, to some extent, reset, because the three leaders met in Tianjin and we posed for some very nice images and all. But beyond symbolism, I don't see much happening thus far between India and China, at least.
They should have pulled it a little further, I think, with regards to symbolism, where three of these guys should have just sat down and had a cup of coffee. It was symbolism. China was doing the same thing. China was showing, oh, see, I've got India and Russia here. China showed India pretty hard. All their papers had it, all their media had it. They were singing songs about India. They still are, by the way. So they're doing the same thing. I mean, we have actually, by the way, there's been a lot of, I would say, reserved sort of an opinion about China and India. Everybody's saying, no, we don't trust them, That sort of a narrative is common. Everybody knows about it. But in China, the narrative, oh, see, these are two civilizations. The dragon and elephant will dance and this. I'm like, really? Okay, fantastic. By the way, they made Mr. Modi and Mr. Putin's hand-in-hand image famous in China.
I see. Okay.
Because it was an answer to Donald Trump, now. that see India and Russia is pushing it back to this and that. So
And I
they
think
use
Trump was pretty upset because he put a post on social media on it. He was pretty upset about that. He didn't
that.
mention India, but he was pretty upset.
I missed that post. Otherwise, I normally at about 6:30, 7:30, I'm looking, ye sala kab uthega? And then most of the days I type ut gaya sala. He does that. Coming to the last segment around here, which I want to talk about, the global structure a little bit. One thing is that there is an acknowledgement of the Indian position in the world, which has happened this time. And it's not media, chedia, and all that stuff. It is now being recognized pretty much everywhere. Even China has said, don't do this. You can say that they've said it for compulsion to make sure that India is on their side, but whatever said and done, I mean, it's what it is. How do you think that goes forward? Because you're going to have a block at the end of it. If it comes to America, the three will stand together and say, get lost. That will happen in a lot of cases, and in some cases, China will ditch. Right? So that will also be the case. So how do you think the global geopolitics is going to go forward? You got the Ukraine war, which I wonder why we started fingering into. But fair enough. I think Modi ji wants to stick it to Donald Trump a little bit. Chalta hai. You've started selling oil to Ukraine. Well, that was.
So now Zelensky is funding Putin's war, isn't he?
I have no that. For some reason, you're sticking your nose into the Ukraine war. And I think you're doing it to leg it to this guy. Listen, we know how to figure it out. So how do you think that fourth position in the world is coming up for India? And this quad, if I may, is coming up in the global order perspective. What do you think is going to happen there? It's not going to be easy for us to be accepted. That's not going to happen at all. At all. But still, you can't.
See, the situation is that the world can no longer ignore India. That's unfortunately from their perspective, they cannot afford to ignore India anymore. India is the fourth largest economy.
The G7 said it.
Yeah, they said it. Okay.
They said it that you can't. No. India needs to be invited. Europe put a lot of pressure. America put pressure. No. Canada, please invite Modi ji. And that's how the invite came in. Initially, there was no invite for the G7.
So India is now the fourth largest economy in the world. In a few months, whenever it happens, it's inevitable. We're gonna be the third largest economy in the world. When you have a nation that's about to be the third largest economy, the world can no longer ignore the nation, no matter how much they hate that nation. See, the problem the West has with India is that we were once under occupation, under British occupation. They look upon us as one of the defeated civilizations, but the problem that they face from their perspective is that why didn't you guys die out? Whichever civilization we conquered and occupied, we destroyed. But you guys are still around. And you guys are not just still around, you're rising again. You're now about to be the third largest economy, and you're still pagan, you're still polytheists. They hate this. And they hate the fact that we are not white people. We're brown. Ye to brown log hai, disgusting, terrible. And how dare brown guys go ahead of us? That sort of thing. So that's the reason why the West has such a big problem with us. They will not say that this is the reason, but this is the reason. It's the deep-rooted, dark secret, the real reason why they hate India so much. And India is rising. So they can no longer afford to ignore India. So they've got to factor India into everything. Whenever there's a big G7 meeting or whatever, they have to invite India, because without India's presence there, I mean, it's not that relevant. So, and yet the problem we face is that we are not that big of an economy right now. 4 point something trillion dollars. We have not reached double digits yet. We still have a long way ahead of us. So we unfortunately matter now. Everybody looks at us and everybody thinks about us and everybody kind of hates us for being here. And yet we are not in the position where we really scare people, right? If you matter, but you don't scare people that much yet, then it's a problem for you. because then everyone's gunning for you. Indians right now are soft targets in the West. Everyone's going on this Hindu-phobic, Indo-phobic hate trip all over social media. Blame Indians for everything. Blame Indians for stealing American jobs. Blame Indians for doing this, that, whatever. On the one hand, Indians are low IQ. On the other hand, Indians are the top earners in the US. On the one hand, Indians are this, and so it's all contradictory. They're confused, and they just this outpouring of hate. Much of it may have been manufactured by Chinese bots to start with, maybe Pakistani bots to start with, but now it's been mainstreamed in the West. There are these anti-Indian demonstrations in Australia that are happening, and so much more. As if India is the root cause of all the problems they're facing. I mean, in the UK, if there's hatred for Indians, I mean, what the hell are you people talking about? Do we behave the way Pakistanis do in the UK? I mean, are you kidding me? But that's the situation. So it's going to be a tough time ahead for India, maybe a tough decade ahead for India, because now it's the age of containment. The US is going to do everything it takes to contain India, including they'll try regime change operations in India. I assure you of that. So that is where we are right now. It's the gloves are off now. It's war, essentially, by some means or the other.
Fantastic. At least we can call it that. Till last year,
yeah.
no, maintain the balance. We need to win. Now it's like, yes, sir, let's fight now. Enough.
Yeah, so it's essentially out in the open now, which is good in a sense. Yeah,
I like that. Yeah, I like that. I like that as a situation. But interestingly, Russia, which didn't have much geopolitical heft going back probably 3 years, and if you notice, I would say even a year after the war, he was still very, off. But today, it's improving. So I think in my opinion, the India-Russia relationship is going to be very consequential going forward.
It is, yes. I'll tell you which are the consequential relationships for India going forward. Let's say the next 10, 20 years. Russia, definitely. We'll have to see about Mr. Putin's succession. If you're talking about a 20-year time horizon, I expect that at some point in time, Mr. Putin will step down and somebody else will step up in his place. So that's going to be critical for Russia. If they get the succession wrong, everything Mr. Putin has worked for over the past 30 years will be wasted. So it's critical for Mr. Putin to get his succession right. Now, the India-Russia relationship will be very consequential. We are two nations with this great history together, going back decades, almost a century. We have no real issues of friction. We have no issues of divergence of national interests. Sometimes we get annoyed with each other. Sometimes Russia dilly-dallies with Pakistan. That annoys us. Maybe sometimes we do something that annoys them to a certain extent. But these are irritants. These are not real problems. So India-Russia is going to be a very important relationship. And we need to strengthen that relationship. We need to explore every possible avenue of cooperation that will be mutually beneficial with Russia, whether it is technology, whether it is semiconductors, whether it is AI, whether it is whatever, whether it is the Arctic route, whatever, shipbuilding, etc. The other consequential relationship is India and France. So France is a nation that chafes under the yoke of NATO and the EU. The French have been at war with the Anglos for 1,000 years. They have no love for the Anglos. And to be under Anglo hegemony is something that the French, they just hate it in their blood. And the French are the only nation in NATO that has a quasi-independent foreign policy and a completely independent nuclear deterrent. The British nuclear deterrent is the big red button is in Washington. Okay, it's not in London. All right, because their so-called nuclear warheads are mated to American missiles, Trident missiles. It used to be Polaris in the past. Now it's Trident. But the French have a completely independent nuclear deterrent, which makes them a totally different beast. And they have been burned hard by the Americans and the Australians, the submarine deal, right? The UK-US submarine deal. So the French want to give it back.
I don't know who got burnt in that, Australia or France, or both.
I think both were burned. Both were burned. And now the Australians will pay tens of billions of dollars for the privilege of parking American submarines in Australian waters. That's what it's going to be like. So the Australians have been burned. The French have been terribly burned, and they are extremely unhappy. They want to give it back to the Americans, the evil Americans. So India-France is going to be an important relationship if we get things right. I'm hearing something about the Safran, the joint engine development. Let's see how that goes. But yeah, I think India-France is also going to be very consequential. India, Russia, we'll see how it goes. But our relationship with the global South nations, the ASEAN nations, Indonesia, that is super important. I mean, it's a low hanging fruit, guys. Come on, guys in the government. It's a low hanging fruit. We have thousands of years of cultural relations with them. We have no issues with them. They still look at us. They would still be happier to have us as a rising power compared to China. When it comes to the African nations, Latin American nations, once again, low hanging fruit. We need to engage with all these nations. We need to expand our diplomatic outreach with all these nations. And you know what? It's going to be the West that will be isolated, not us.
Mm-hmm. And that's what they're worried about. Honestly, I don't think they're worried. They won't say it, right? Let me assure you this. And this is something which is my analysis. And that's my last question before we get into the audience. I don't think that the West wants to even accept the fact that we are close to the global South, right? They just don't. They don't want to even acknowledge. They don't mind acknowledging you with China and Russia, and that's fine because that's the known enemy, and they're kind of okay with that, because they can run China down, they can run Russia down. How do they run the global South? They can't.
That's the issue, right?
That they get petrified with, and they're not able to actually push back on India and the global South.
Because I'll tell you what, the global South, they know what the Americans are. The Americans have been running them down, abusing them, using them for all kinds of nefarious purposes, bullying them for decades. We know this. I mean, in case people don't know, just look at what happened in Indonesia in the 1950s, 1960s, and who did that. Yeah. If you look at all these nations, sorry.
What happened right now in Indonesia? Same thing.
Right now also, exactly. I mean, forget about the 1950s and 60s. Look at what's happening right now.
10 days
Look
back.
at how Thailand has been treated. Look at how Thailand has been treated. Look at how all the African nations have been treated. There's one nation, and when it comes to all these nations, the global South nations, who do they look for as an alternative? Do they look at China? The Chinese, everyone knows, are out for their own business. They are pretty cutthroat in their business dealings, and they are not friendly to anyone. So who's left? I think it's India, and India is now finally realizing that we can be the leader of the global South, because we don't want anything from these nations. We don't want to exploit them. We don't want to be an extractive partner. We want to partner with them in a win-win kind of situation with all these nations. So I think it is very important for India to go and reach out to all the global South nations, and that's going to put the West in a very, very uncomfortable position and very situation they can't do a thing about, because they can't help it. And and India becoming the voice and leader of the global South is going to be extremely uncomfortable for the West. It's going to put them in a very difficult position. India already in the last G20, in the New Delhi G20 summit, we brought the African Union into the G20, which I think nobody bothered to do in the past. So we have actually walked the talk. It's not just like we talk about things. We are now beginning to walk the talk. In the past, it was look east. Now it is actually act east. So once you start acting, things are different. So I think India has a huge opportunity. If India plays the cards right, if India looks at and takes care of the low-hanging fruit and all that, I think we're going to have a lot of partners globally. And that will give us a tremendous amount of heft to grow together, all of us.
That's true. I think Israel is also going to be very interesting going forward. I don't know if Israel will kind of hold on the way it is right now, but it's going to be interesting to watch that region. Considering one analysis that I think we did on this channel a while ago, where we said that Israel and Turkey are going to go in for each other, and that's going to happen. That's going to happen very soon. The Turks declared them as a strategic threat, and they've blocking diplomacy. So yeah, there you go.
Well, I'll tell you what, Israel is a really interesting nation. On the one hand, they have this antipathy towards Turkey, and the Turks have even more of antipathy towards Israel. On the other hand, Israel and Turkey are collaborating together in Azerbaijan. Azerbaijan is Turkey's ally number one, and Israel is helping Azerbaijan essentially try and wipe Armenia out from the map of the world. And who is supporting Armenia? It is a Hindu nation and a Shia Islamic nation. India and Iran working together to save Armenia from Turkey and Azerbaijan and Israel. I mean, what on earth is happening there? Israel is a very interesting nation. Israel's number one partner is the US. The US has declared that they will unconditionally support Israel no matter what happens. Now, America's vassal is Pakistan. So the question is, what's the relationship between Israel and Pakistan? I mean,
Huge.
both nations officially don't have any diplomatic relations. Pakistan officially says Israel should not exist. But when Asim Munir is feted and hosted in the US, there is an Israeli representative there. So there is something going on. Okay, Israel is a very, very, very interesting country. Israel also has a stake, it looks like, in operation in Project K, Cookie Land for Christ, because many of these cookies have declared that they are Jews and they've gone and settled in Israel. And there's some support for this separatist agenda coming in from Israel. I don't know if it's only from the cookie converts or whether it is from a higher level, because when a group of Indian influencers, let's say, went to Israel on a tour of Israel recently, the Israeli government brought in a cookie rabbi to talk to them. So there is a lot happening, which is very interesting when it comes to Israel. So interesting nation for sure.
Yeah, very interesting. I think if it's just Israel, it's fine. If it's Israel and that dirty American connection, then they go off track after that, and then they're not able to figure out what's happening. The Mossad and the CIA together are dangerous. Mossad alone are fine if they're perfectly alright, because then they don't want to harm you. But Mossad with the Americans is extremely. And by the way, they both hate each other. They hate each other. I was watching a podcast of a CIA retired chap. He said, when you go to Israel, they give you gifts as stuffed bunnies and all that stuff. It says cameras. But can you imagine? So it's like, Israelis are crazy. If you stay in Israel and they know you're a spy, you go out for a party, you come back, your entire house will be upside down. So they do this just to let you know that we know what you're doing.
It's just a message. They'll know that you'll catch all that. It's just a message. That's part of the games that you have in tradecraft,
Israelis are funny that way. And it's going to be very interesting to see. I hope some sanity comes in that region, because the way we are going, I think another 1.5 months, we are waiting for another frack up happening there.
Yeah, we don't want that to happen. And a lot of Indians, and I've seen this, I don't know how naive Indians are. A lot of Indians were super happy when Israel hammered Iran. Iran got the worst end of the deal. But hey, listen, Indians, listen, you right-wing Indians who are watching, those of you who are super happy that Iran is being hammered by Israel, imagine that the regime in Iran falls, okay? The regime of the mullahs and ayatollahs falls. And there is a democratic regime, a secular government that comes to power in Tehran. They're going to be pro-US, which means pro-Pakistan. Can you 3-year-olds please wake up and grow up a little bit, at least become 12-year-olds? Please. We
They
need
don't.
the current government in Iran the way it is. It may be a mullah government, whatever. They are anti-Pakistan. They are kind of pro-India. We have decent relations with them. If a regime like the Mohammad Reza Pahlavi regime comes back to power in Iran, it's gonna be a strongly, virulently anti-India government. Can you guys please grow up a little bit?
Why they
Please.
gave fighter jets to Pakistan during the 71 war?
Absolutely. There you have it.
65, they gave tanks. They had some troops on the border as well. They were fighting with the Pakistanis. There's no question about it. And yeah, that's absolutely there. That's why I say if there is a regime change in Afghanistan, Iran, that needs to happen, then Balochistan needs to separate, so that I have my port and I go into Afghanistan the way I want to. I don't need to kind of figure out with these guys. Balochistan needs to separate out. All right, guys, let's get into some questions. My request to everybody is please like. That's very critical. We've got more than 4,000 people watching us. Can we please hit the like button? Guys, I know you guys get busy with the conversations and with everything. Please don't forget to do that. And of course, if you can, support the channels. All right, let's go. First, there are 2 members. Achint, you share a name with me. Thank you so much. And Ashokji, thank you so much for becoming a member. Just a second, let me fix the screen. Otherwise, because I'm at the bottom, half my face gets cut off. Martin Rangaji, he says, notwithstanding recent bonhomie, China cannot be trusted. Can and should and would Bharat go back to the US if US reverses its policies towards Bharat?
Look, I completely agree with you, sir, that China, we have to be very careful with China. Every step of the way, we have to check and double check everything. We have to keep verifying what their actual actions are when we are dealing with them. So I agree. Now, if the US suddenly decides that they will reverse their actions against India, and again, no more tariffs and all, do you think we can trust India? Do you think we can trust the US? The trust is gone. It's over. They've shown their hand. They've shown their true intentions. Their real comfort zone is Pakistan, not India. They don't like India. We cannot trust the US ever again. It's over. It's end of the story. That's about it.
It's going to be politically very difficult to do that as well.
Yeah.
In the near future, Donald Trump or his foolish, arrogant team uses the word regime change. I won't be surprised.
Well, I would not be surprised if they don't use the word regime change, but they try a regime change. So I think it's gonna be happening. They're only attempting something.
Yeah. Since Democrats are not at all creating ruckus against Trump's trade policy, is it that the deep state is completely behind Trump and in acceptance of Trump's stance against India?
Oh, totally, totally. See, last year when the election campaigning was happening, I said that it was very unlikely that Trump comes to power. But if he does come to power, it means that he will have kissed the ring. Kissing the ring means it's a reference to the Godfather movie, in which when you go and become a member of the Godfather's family, which means a vassal of the Godfather, you have to kneel down on your knees and you have to kiss the ring of the Godfather. So Trump has kissed the ring of the deep state, which means that he is completely endorsed by the deep state, and whatever he's doing, it is nothing but furthering the agenda of the deep state itself. So that's absolutely correct. They are completely behind Trump, and they're completely aligned with Trump. Trump is completely aligned with them. He's simply their agent.
I'd actually kind of flip it a little bit, if you don't mind. I'd say, it's the Democrats are keeping quiet because they don't have any credibility today. Who listen to them? They just don't have any credibility. Their whole standing in America itself is shit. You can't have a Kamala Harris coming out and saying, "Oh, don't do this with India." It'll just not work.
They're gonna hibernate for a few years, for maybe like 3 years or so, and then they'll return.
So you'll have these people like who are bureaucrats, like Jake Sullivan and all these guys writing, and they'll put that point of view across. But the deep state in this thing is, I think they're going through a churn themselves. They're trying to figure out, the change. That's where the chaos is, and that's the sweet spot these monkeys have found to kind of trouble the world. That's what my feeling is. That change sweet spot, where nobody's paying attention to anything. And everybody's like, let's do this. Yeah, do it. So it's, it's that moment of truth when you're there. Actually, I think it's just the geopolitical change. What do you think about that?
Yeah, it's possible that they themselves are figuring things out. Maybe everyone's confused right now, and they themselves are wondering, what shall we do? So yeah, it's a good time when everyone's confused to figure things out and try a few things here and there, and let's see how it goes. Yeah.
So my logic was, when I thought about this, my logic was that information is power, right? And these morons, for some reason, gave that power to us. Conversations, internet. If they won't have done that, so in the year of making money, they dug their own hole.
Yeah,
that's the way. I don't know. That's you do stupid things, right? Raoji, thank you so much. Jai Hind, Jai Nagaland, thank you so much. Why are we in talk with Malaysia to sell BrahMos? Are we? When more LET heads are hiding there than in Pakistan, also KSA is full anti-mode. Our response.
Are we in talks with Malaysia for BrahMos? I would be very surprised if we will sell BrahMos to Malaysia. Malaysia, we don't sell anything to them, no. And we stopped buying palm oil also from Malaysia. So that was in 2019 or whatever. So I would be very surprised. I would be shocked actually if we were to sell BrahMos to Malaysia.
Yeah, it's
KSA sorry?
Indonesia, Vietnam, and Philippines. That's it.
That makes sense. Yeah. Now, when it comes to KSA, Kingdom of Saudi Arabia in full anti-India mode. Look, Saudi Arabia has to keep the US happy. Every few years, Saudi Arabia has to buy 100, 200, 300 billion dollars worth of American weapons just to placate the overlord and to give tribute to the emperor. So Saudi Arabia is a nation that has to keep the US happy. If something has happened that may sound anti-India, it is just the Saudis, looking out for their own backside. That's about it. But overall, I think India, Saudi Arabia, we have a good relationship.
The oil lobby is separate from Saudi Arabia. Huh? Remember that.
But of course, yeah.
Chevron and Aramco and all that. That's different from. They kind
That's
of.
different from the political leadership. That's right.
Sarvani, thank you. Sir, shouldn't India pace up the switch on its own tech initiatives, alternatives, instead of just creating them? Also, shouldn't startups embrace Indian solutions over Americans? How much time do we have before a strike?
I would say we don't have a lot of time before the West denies everything to India. I completely agree that we need to switch to our own technological alternatives instead of just creating them. India's pace up the switch to its own tech. I mean, if you don't have tech alternatives, you have to create them, right? Right. And our startups should ideally embrace Indian solutions over American solutions, but that can only happen if the Indian solutions are good enough. A lot of Indian solutions maybe are not that good enough. And as a startup, you have to make money, right? You have to somehow stay afloat in the ocean when all the sharks are circling you. So you will obviously go for the best alternatives that are there in the market. So my point is that the Indians need to start creating world-class alternatives to everything as it exists in the world. And I think that shift is happening now, but it's going to take a change in mindset. It's going to be the young startups who are going to have this culture of excellence. The older ones are still stuck in that labor arbitrage mode and whatnot. So it's going to take time for this to happen in India, and maybe the government need to light a fire under everyone's backsides to perhaps accelerate this situation. But overall, I agree with your sentiment.
Yashi, thank you. He says all the related pivot dealing of Tapu. There is no PK Pakistan oil, but we will take the sanctions. Iran oil rebranded as Pakistan oil to hide this transaction, use crypto. Not as simple as that. But yeah, that could be done as well. What do you think?
Yeah, I think it's more complex than that. This may be a little bit oversimplifying, which of course is a good way of looking at things. Yeah, sure.
Yeah. Mr. Reddy, thank you. Chavda sir, you have often remarked that Trump has kissed the ring. Does that confirm Trump has really done that and conceded to the deep state?
It means that for Trump to be elected, he would have sworn allegiance to the deep state. That's what it means. It's not that after he became the president, he went and paid a visit to the deep state and did some negotiations and they agreed to something. No, he was elected because he had guaranteed that he will do exactly what the deep state tells him. I'll give you a very subtle indication that he is endorsed by the deep state. Okay, in the US, when a politician or a president is unpopular, they are horrifyingly lampooned by something called Saturday Night Live. Saturday Night Live is a television program. It is the bastion. It's the bastion of the lefties, of the Democrats. And when Trump was the 45th president, they lampooned him mercilessly. They were so disrespectful to him. This time, they do lampoon him, but it's in a milder way. So, yeah, things are different. And Trump is indeed endorsed by the powers that be.
You know, JD Vance is the guy, the guarantee.
Yeah, what's that?
JD Vance is the deep state's guarantee.
Of course he is.
Trump
VP
agreed,
obviously is the
No. The day Trump agreed to get him as the VP, they said, okay, you can come.
That's possible. Yeah.
Harshji, thank you. It's been 80 years since World War II. Since US fears the Axis powers. Oh, yeah.
Well, Germany is no longer something the US fears. Italy is something the US no longer fears. Maybe in Japan is under US occupation. So what's left? The Russians? That's about it.
Yeah.
And Russia was part of the Allies at the end, wasn't it? So
Harshji, thank you. 1 hour ago, Trump tweeted, behaving like a teenage girl who just had a breakup. Sensex will cross 1 lakh points by 2026, but it'll go 1.5 lakh points. Did he tweet about the Sensex? No.
Okay, I'm not sure if there's a relation between the two, but okay, I haven't seen the tweet from 1 hour ago.
Yeah. Magnum ji, thank you so much. Sanjay ji, thank you so much. Sriram ji, thank you. He's saying Chinese have a very backward view of China. Yeah, Chinese still have a very backward view of China. They respect Modi, but they will not like Indians as a whole. I think you meant to say Chinese have a very backward view of India. They respect Modi ji, but don't like Indians as a whole.
That's okay. That is their problem.
We don't have a very, very great view of them also.
That's okay. I mean, I'm least concerned with what other people think. We do our thing, right? Let them think whatever they want to think. Why should we be concerned? Indians, unfortunately, I've seen that Indians really put a lot of emphasis on what other people think of them. Let's please not do that. To hell with what someone thinks. Let them say whatever. Let's do our thing and let's grow. The only answer, the best possible answer is success. That's it. Then who cares what people say?
Bravo, Alpha, Lima, Lima, Serra. That's the answer.
That's the answer.
Yeah. Archit ji, thank you. He says, what are your thoughts about NATO guy's statement? Gunther, bunch of bullshit. He finally slipped his mask.
That guy is his Twitter account is banned in India or something, right? Gunther something or the
Oh
other.
no, he's been doing this.
Yeah. Who cares?
That's why
Let him say.
Everybody's getting pissed off. I'm like, guys, he's done this. He's done this before. Reddy ji, thank you so much. Chavda sir, if India starts extracting crude eventually and grows its refining capacity, it includes other oil producers into BRICS, do you think we can break the USD? We've got the highest refining capacity in the world, by the way.
All we need is extraction capacities now somewhere. We need that. We need to make a discovery. So if India does eventually start extracting crude from its own territory, and refining capacity, like Aadi says, is already the highest in the world, that's a huge problem for the world. The world is going to throw a tantrum, especially the US and the West. Yeah, you could break the USD with that. You certainly could. You could create a petro rupee after that if you have that sort of capacity. So yeah, you're absolutely.
Ritvik ji, thank you. When can we see Su-57s in India?
I have no idea. Will that happen? Will that not happen? I think we should take it seriously, the offer of the Su-57. Even if it's not the best aircraft in the world, it's still a fifth generation fighter plane. And if they give the full TOT,
ये सारे best boost सब वो RCS खराब है, ये खराब हो रहने दो यार. Look at the warfare today. You're talking about long distance warfare. You don't need stealth.
Yeah. You need long legs. You need the long range missiles. That's what you need.
I don't need stealth. Why should I put my pilot in bloody jeopardy to go inside some enemy territories and bomb them? Why? For what?
Do it at standoff distances, right? Whatever you want to do.
Why do I need that? Who's gonna bloody merge two aircraft in a bloody air-to-air battle today? Where?
Yeah, so yeah, totally. That is all 20th century warfare.
Yeah. 055, brother, thank you so much. Indian MAGA make America Kareeb again.
What? Well, that's for them to do.
Dudeja, thank you so much, brother. You're very kind.
Thank you, sir. Good to see you.
Siramji, once again, thank you. What's the absolute necessary things that India as a state and Indians as a whole should become a great power in the next 10 years? Any ideas on what individuals can do at a personal level?
Look, I'll say this I will recommend only one thing. Only one thing India needs to do. India needs to end corruption. That's all I'll say.
Civic sense. Simple. Keep your streets clean. Keep your roads clean. Drive properly. Respect the other guy and you'll be fine. Trust me, we've got enough capacity to do everything else. Civic sense actually covers corruption as well. So basic civic sense. You don't need laws for it. You just need to be a human being. Divij Bodaji, thank you. AC and AA, what an amazing combo. Thank you so much. Just one thing makes me sad, Aadi, when you use bucks instead of rupees. Yeah. Well, that's just the way of speaking. I'm not this thing. Once again, thank you. He says, did the new US regime turn out to be still better? Even after all the Trump tariff war against India compared to what Biden was doing against us? I'd say yes.
Look, I'll tell you what. Since 1947, if you look at the India-US relationship, India has never faced as much economic coercion from the US as it does today. In terms of economic coercion, this is the worst time period between India and the US. This is the worst arm twisting the US has ever attempted of India. 71 was different. It was military arm twisting. This is economic arm twisting. So I would say that even if the Biden regime or its new manifestation had come to power this year, even they would have done the same thing, because this is all in line with what the deep state wants to achieve now and completely dismantle the existing world order. So I think it would not have really mattered whether it was Trump who came to power or Kamala who came to power. It would have been the same thing.
Jai Hind, Jai Nagaland, thank you once again. Malaysia is asking India for BrahMos for their Su-30s. Fantastic.
Oh, let them ask. It's all right.
Utkarshji, thank you. Is Israel-India really affect the world order?
No.
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 Thapa Saab, thank you as an Indian Gorkha from Darjeeling. Any chance that we got separated from rotting West Bengal and we get our statehood soon, very soon, sooner than you will expect. Actually,
Okay.
something's going to happen there. Be real. Thank you, Trump hitting IT services with tariff. That'll be the end of Trump. That's the last day he'll be allowed to enter the Oval Office. Let me assure you this.
Look, all their Fortune 500 companies will go down if this happens. So they won't do it.
They won't. Last two thought provocator ji, thank you. He says Trump का निधन हो तो प्रभु उनकी आत्मा को नोबेल. If Trump dies, give his soul the Nobel Peace Prize. Yeah, he's not going to get it alive at least. And RJ, thank you so much. That was fun. That was really fun. Abhijit Saab, is always a pleasure having you on the program.
Always a pleasure speaking with you, sir.
My absolutely honor. And I'm looking forward to catching up with you probably in November, and we'll probably do this face to face as well. But till then, I think we should do it. Do these shows at least once a month so that we can have
Absolutely.
a collab for both of us. Okay, 1 second. There's another one which has come. Abhishek ji, thank you. I feel sorry for Deep State Ring that Thaku kissed. Hey, you guys heard he stinks. Somebody said he stinks. Yeah.
Okay, that's good to know.
I don't know. All right. Thank you so much, sir. Lovely to have you. Namaskar.
Namaskar. Thank you so much.